Welcome back to BioInsights. Today we're joined by Mike Studdard. He's a physical therapist, an educator, an author, a TEDx speaker who sits on a really interesting intersection of neuroscience, motor control, real world performance. Mike's built a respected career. He's helping clinicians better understand neuroplasticity. He's looked at movement and function across the lifespan. And I think as PTs and trainers that are listening to BioInsights, they're going to get a lot from this conversation. What makes this conversation different than the typical clinician interview is that he just doesn't study the brain-body connection. He actually lives it. He's been a marathon runner at the age of 40, qualified for Boston, hell of accomplishment, and went to complete 16 more. He's set world record 4 times for underwater treadmill marathon. That is pretty interesting. I don't know how your skin feels after that one. And then competing in his late 50s in triathlon, singles pickleball, and the senior games. And he's coined this term that we're going to talk about today called GeriAthlete. So welcome to the BioInsight community. And to help us get us started, I want to talk about, you spent 30 years in the neurological rehab space. What was the case or moment early in your career that made you realize that it's the nervous system was the real frontier as
Yeah,
opposed to treatment?
it was right place, right time, Marcello. Thanks so much for the question and for the introduction. Uh, in the mid and late 1980s, we were just starting to learn a little bit about the moldable and recoverable brain, and eventually into the 90s and early 2000s, this was known as neuroplasticity. And before it was even named neuroplasticity and the brain could be remalleable, we certainly saw that. And I saw the potential and promise for people to recover truly quality of life through intense rehabilitation. And that's what drew me in.
Yeah. And so then your book, you called it The Brain Chooses Itself. That's a powerful title, but also a really interesting title. What do you mean, and what possessed you to write this book?
That's an excellent question as well. So I had been working on all things brain health that brings us into the related concepts of health span and lifespan for a number of years. And I'd been lecturing about this around different circuits uh, and different events and conferences for a number of years. And so I had aligned and amassed and curated, if you will, all the knowledge that we have in the health span space with 5 pillars: physical activity, and really social connectivity, nutrition, sleep, rest, play, and novel connections and novel activities. We talk about safe but extreme experiences. So I'd been lecturing about this for some time. And the one thing throughout all of my readings and listenings and discussions in the health span and lifespan space that seemed to be missing was the individual health seeker's opportunity to make a choice about what they like, what they prefer, what seems engaging and attractive to them. And so I started to move into this sector that no one else had been looking at, and that is the power of choice. So it came to me, and the research actually followed through with all of this. The research supports it, that when an individual makes a choice about this doctor, this health system, this medication, this intervention, this physical activity, this diet, this time of night to sleep in, this social connectivity. When people make choices, they adopt those identities, they stay consistent with those choices, and in fact, it improves the effectiveness of any one of those things that I listed. So therein comes the answer to your question. It was clear to me that when we want brain and body to interact for their collective and maximal benefit, it has to be the brain has to choose itself. This is what I think is best for me. And the science in belief, placebo effect, autonomy, and choice bear that out. Higher levels of dopamine, neuroplasticity, and the list goes on.
Interesting, because that word neuroplasticity, um, something, most people, most practitioners or most people back then in the 80s and 90s thought of it as helping stroke patients recover. How should coaches, trainers, and athletes think about that today?
I love that question. I'll stay as short as I can. Neuroplasticity is the underpinning of all forms of learning. Okay. And we have three basic types of memories, right? We have fact-based memories. We call them semantic memories. We have episodic memories. I make a memory of an event, first time I took a flight or went to Disneyland, etc. And then finally, we have procedural memories, which are skill-based, movement-based memories, where your brain starts to figure out how to throw that curveball, how to flick your wrist at the end of that free throw, how to put spin or fade on a golf ball, etc. So all three of those memories, facts, events, and movements, are stored in your brain. But the only way we make any learning stick is by communicating two neurons that never communicated, or by diversifying the connections. And I'll be very brief about that. You can expand the dendrites. You can also make connections more efficient. All of those functions are called neuroplasticity. So for any athlete, any GeriAthlete or young athlete that wants to learn a movement or understand a strategy or remember a play better, all of those things require memory, which means all of those things require neuroplasticity.
Thank you. GeriAthlete, you just said it again. Where did that come from, and what does it mean to you?
So in 2007, I was on the verge of actually turning 40 years old. And I thought to myself, you know, uh, in many sectors, I'm considered a master's athlete when I'm 40. And I thought to myself, geriatrics. And I look at words a lot of times because I'm a person that likes alliterations and puns and plays on words, etc. And I looked at the word geriatrics, and I thought masters athletes. Okay, actually, geriatrics. I'll actually capitalize the A in the middle of geriatrics and turn it into geriathletics, and also have a pronoun, let's say I should say a noun of GeriAthlete. And that's what I was converting myself into: master's athlete, triathlete at the time, and master's in running as well. I mean, there's a lot of age classing in endurance athletics as well. And so really, it was something that I wanted to study to see what are the true possibilities of an individual as they turn 40 years old. And now I'm well into my mid 50s, late 50s by now. And I certainly understand that there are a lot of myths that needed to be debunked. And so in coming up with that term, it was very important for me to be able to potentially push the boundaries of not only what that term connotes for people, but what it could indicate for people in the future. Because, since 2007, we're at, nearly 20 years since then. I think the world has really redefined what we expect of 40 years old, of 50 years old, of 60. And so it's evolved nicely.
I agree with you. I've seen it, but I also seen the bad, right? Oh,
Mm,
just take it easy, do a walk, do this, do that, keep the intensity low.
yeah.
And it's like, wait, hold on. I look at the terms and what's been going on in the industry, like sarcopenia, and I'm like, that's a lag indicator.
Yeah.
A lead indicator would be what's going on with your nervous system, and are you getting intensity in your life? And I
Yeah.
think your example of GeriAthlete is exactly that. It's, hey, you could be still competitive regardless of your age.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Marcello, that's a really good comment because, and there's a lot of great ways to go with that. I'm going to start first in neurorehabilitation, which is where I've had expertise in the last 35 years of being a physical therapist. We have learned that upwards of 40% of disability in people with multiple sclerosis is because of learned non-use, disuse atrophy. Not the disease. 40% of what they can't do is a function of what they don't do, because largely people like me and in the medical industry used to hold them down with the suppressed expectations of if you exercise, you're going to make your disease worse. Now we've debunked that, but it's just like the Women's Health Initiative of don't take hormone replacement. A study, a medical concept stays in the minds of the consumers of the people much longer than that study itself has been debunked. And so now we know, I took that from the world of neuroplasticity and the world of neurologic rehabilitation. You lose what you don't use, and that happens in persons with multiple sclerosis. Same thing was happening in people with Parkinson's disease. We suppress your expectations and you fulfill those suppressed expectations. Now the same thing is something we have to undo in aging. Be careful, because if your goal's too low, you might just meet them, right? That is a famous maxim in business. Don't set your goals too low,
yeah,
because you might just get what you ask for. And so now we understand that by suppressing expectations, and just exactly as you said, walking can be your total package of health. No, it can't be. So we went from 20 years ago, everybody thinking that walking was everything you needed, to, oh, let's add a little bit of resistance training, but not too much, to now we're getting to the point that, oh, you really need intensity, and it's probably even more health giving than cardiovascular exercise. Yes, you need both, but the reality is, from metabolic health, immune health, fall prevention, and the list goes on, that resistance actually beats cardiovascular. But C. Everett Koop, Surgeon General in the 1980s, would have said 20 to 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise 3 times a week is all you need. So we're totally flipping the script.
yeah, it's interesting. I can't tell you how many times I go back. I'm like, well, that was a mistake. It's like, right, you know, but these experiences that you've had, obviously, you've made the choice to add challenges in your life. The treadmill marathon on underwater, singles pickleball, all these things. Do you like? Do you know? Do they talk each differently to you as an athlete or as a clinician? Like, what made you do that? Is it like, what challenges am I going to do? Is that just how you think?
Yeah, and it's great because it comes back nicely to your first question about the brain that chooses itself, the book that I wrote, and the fifth pillar of health that I referred to is extreme experiences, novel experiences, and that is a an untapped way for most people to challenge their brain to move someplace else, to change a job, to change your passions, to try to relearn how to play the piano. I've actually done all of those things intentionally. And that's exactly where the underpinning for your question, the answer to your question comes. So I started off as a person who was a baseball player. I used to play literally 180 games a year because our high school was so small we didn't have football. We played
Uh,
we played fall baseball, then we had basketball. That was our only other sport. Then we played spring baseball, and then I played in the summer for American Legion. So baseball was everything to me until it could no longer be. I walked onto the University of Missouri's baseball team, made it through 3 cuts, didn't make the fourth cut. My baseball career was over right there. Uh, so what else do? I start picking up other things. And by the time I'm 25 years old, I run my very first mile I've ever run consecutively. 1 mile, first time I'd ever run that far, because in the 80s, you're a baseball player, you don't run, you don't lift weights. So then I started running, and a neighbor says, I'm going to try this triathlon. He tries a sprint triathlon, and I decided to train alongside of him. And I said, okay, that sounds fun. So I start breathing into that. And I become very snobbery. You got to be a multi-sport athlete. And then I get into that. I do 17 half Ironman, 75 Olympic distance, and 50 some sprint distance triathlons. And then a friend of mine says, I just qualified for the Boston Marathon. You should do it with me. Running, you shouldn't do 3 hours of running straight. I said, but for you, I'll go ahead and try this. So we trained together. I qualify in the Portland Marathon in 2009 at 40 years old. And I said, I'm only going to run one marathon. And it turns out that I run it in a 3:03, which for 40 years old qualifies you for Boston. So, but okay, fine. I'll run Boston. So then I run Boston in 2010, and I get a 2:57. Well, now I'm addicted, because I'm thinking to myself, how fast can I run a marathon? So then I've, pull that all the way down to 2:54. So I've done, marathoning, and I continue to do triathlon. And now I've said, what else can I challenge myself to do? And along the way, I tried an underwater marathon, which was done to actually raise funds for a group. I was accidentally finding myself as the only person that had ever done one. And then I wanted to see how fast I could run it. And now I want to see how far I can push myself into pickleball, which kind of pulls on that hand-eye coordination that I developed with so many years of baseball, because I was a switch hitter. I could bunt very well, hit to all fields very well, and that pulls me nicely into changing my brain, using a new motor skill, and keeping the brain-body connection so the two of them are feeding one another. So this October, I'm in the Huntsman's Games as a senior pickleball player, and we'll just see how I do. And I never become fearful of competition. There's never a loss to me. Everything's play. And so it's always just an exploration. And that's how all that evolves.
Yeah, no, it's a great mindset. I grew up the same way, playing multiple sports. I think realistically, we were probably the last generation to go out and play. And now you're so distracted that hobbies are not really important. It's how many, post links, likes, or things that you can drive for, and that gives you that dopamine hit, as opposed to the other things that you've did throughout your lifespan that you shared with us.
Yeah.
You Let's bring it back to your teaching space. You have a course called Motor Control Across the Lifespan.
Mm.
What does motor control actually mean, and why should someone do strength and conditioning, care really about this going forward?
That's excellent. Thanks for bringing it back there. So motor control is the brain's ability to understand what the body's current real-time capacities are, and to make the most effective plan according to what the task and environment is asking of you. What that means is, okay, let's say I'm going to be out jogging with my dog, which I did today. All right, I took an easy run with him. Motor control means I have the ability to take in what the pavement looks like. It was very uneven pavement that I was in. Take into consideration the breeze, take into consideration where my dog is moving back and forth, and know what level of fatigue my body has right now from yesterday's very aggressive workout. So motor control is actually that hierarchical capacity for the brain to look at the world and the body's conditions, and then recruit the appropriate muscle and muscle synchronies together that is going to make an efficient plan, so that my running has good economy, it's not injurious, and it actually considers the environment that I'm in. When we look at motor control across the lifespan, we know that people develop skills, and they don't have the ability to maybe run with full economy at 3 and 4 years old, and it refines their capacities as they develop more capacities in motor control and more efficiencies. And we used to think, oh, well, okay, but the aging athlete doesn't have as much power, or doesn't have as much flexibility, or doesn't have as much endurance. But what we've lost sight of is two things, and I'll wrap it back to you on this, is that they have a ton of experience. They're adaptable. They can handle every different possible condition because they've lived it. So there's a strength there that comes to the aging athlete. And the other thing that we've just now started to tap into is we've thought that the trajectory of fitness capacities in life is going to go, because we've all heard, you're going to lose 10% of your strength every decade, starting at age whatever. Well, the reality is, yes, that's actually all going to happen if you're a sedentary individual. But you can level the curve, what we call square the curve, also with the health span, lifespan consideration. And at any point in life, you can also reverse the curve if you program into it. If I leaned hard at 56 years old into power training, by the time I hit 57 years old, I'm going to draw on that, and I will have reversed the curve. I won't just experience that 1 year decline that's supposed to happen. I will have changed it. So motor control across the lifespan says, let's understand that this will happen if you let it and if you're sedentary. But the more you lean into varied experiences, and the more you lean into systemic, programmed, intentional training, you can flatten or reverse any of those curves.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up something that I've already spoke about a couple different times over. The basically depending upon which study, right? The decline of your nervous system. Some people say it's 30, some people say it's 40, but like the studies that I've read, to your point of what you just described, they took a group that was 70 and over that had past experiences and introduced power training, strength training, and literally regressed them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally moving that curve to the right and going back. So the nervous system and the power training is so important today. For I think if you're training or if you're working as with a patient community, it is our job to take these individuals and give them some type of education. Uh, how does that nervous system respond differently to training stresses versus rest? And when you look at this community who's overtrained in some cases,
Mm-hmm.
or someone that's doing tons of activity, um, they're overreaching. Um, actually, what does that look like using your neurological lens
Mm-hmm.
on these patients? What are some telltale signs, and how do you balance this out? Because I think that's the dilemma that we're having, right? People join a club, people work with a physical therapist, they get pain relief, they don't follow through with the whole treatment. That's a big problem. In gym memberships, within like if their utilization rate drops within the first month, then they're pretty much out of that club within 7 to 8 months period of time.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make it better?
Okay, that's very good, because now you actually talk about behavioral economics. How does a person become addicted to a healthy lifestyle? Behavior is one of the things. And the first part of your question also talked about how do we actually know that a person is training at a stimulus that is beneficial versus overtraining or undertraining. Fortunately, the science has come along nicely, and there's three big things to say here. All right, so first off, let's understand that the capacity for a person to recover performance, I can still bench press 165 pounds, 3 repetitions, is one marker. And you can take any type of performance. I still was able to keep up on the treadmill at 10 miles an hour, a 6-minute mile. Take any metric of performance, And you can use that as your control mechanism to understand, did this person undergo a stimulus that broke them down and kept them broken down, or did they recover? And you want to have incurred or introduced a stimulus that caused you to actually drop your performance temporarily, but not in a sustained fashion. So if after doing a series of power lifts and sprint training on Monday, if I can't perform a 6-minute mile, a 10 mph on the treadmill, or whatever your sector and test would be on Tuesday, that's accepted. If I still can't do that on Thursday, I overtrain. Very simply, it is all about the metric of recovering performance. I could sit you down on a semi-recumbent elliptical right now. I don't care whether it's a SciFit stepper, a new step, a BioDex, it doesn't matter. I could sit you down right now and I could say, max it out. And oh my gosh, look at that. You made it to 515 watts. That's your baseline. Now let's go do some training. Oh, you can still hit 515? I probably underdosed you. You shouldn't be able to hit your maximum. But 2 days from now, you've recovered back up and you hit 515. So you can take any metric. That's point number one, the science of knowing, did I give you a valid and stimulus appropriate worthy stimulus? Yes, you can't hit your maximum, and you guys can take a look at your cycling maximum or running or weightlifting, whatever, set the maximum. Second thing to say is, in the world of aging, we now know that the speed of nervous system conduction will slow a little bit with aging, but it will slow precipitously without reaction speed and power training. And the thing that actually limits an aging athlete more than anything is blood flow. And if you're not regularly giving yourself a stimulus of hypoxia, your blood flow will not actually stay viable. So we have to understand that a hypoxic stimulus is in fact having insufficient oxygen delivered to the tissue, and that is the number one stimulus that causes your body to develop more capillaries and more arteries. Now, the third part of that is all about behavioral economics. How do I actually get an individual to be able to become addicted to something? And that comes into measurement. So we actually want somebody to gamify. Oh, wow, I hit 515 watts today. I hit 530. Gamification, behavioral economics, making something easy, making it attractive, making it obvious, and making it satisfying. That's the four main principles from James Clear's 2018 book, Atomic Habits. So it's all three things. It's understanding the physiology of aging. It's understanding the principles of behavioral economics and pulling those in together so we're scientifically delivering a stimulus to you that we know is breaking you down, but then building you up.
I love it. The dose response concept is something that I'm a big proponent of, and baselining people. At least it's an objective measuring tool where you could always refer back, and it helps you then auto-regulate the workout, that's really in essence what you're trying to do, is regulate their fitness. Today, practitioners are pretty much drowning in the opportunity of getting access to wearable device data. HRV, sleep scores, readiness metrics come to mind. How does neuroscience, or what does neuroscience really say about those numbers, and what are they actually telling us?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've got several things to look at there. Very briefly, you have to look at the personality of the person, right? So this is not a one-size-fits-all concept. If the individual has tendencies toward obsession, compulsion, perseveration, anxiety disorder, etc., then the linkage of their performance to a wearable can feel a little bit burdensome to that individual. You wake up, you feel refreshed, but your whatever wearable says you didn't get a good night's sleep. And now you're convinced that you didn't get a good night's sleep. So you have to be watchful of that type of person. However, an individual like myself who is addicted to gamification, competing against oneself, I'm always happy to, take a look at my unnamed brand watch and see what my current running pace is. What's my PR for this course? And so I really benefit from those very wearables. Now let's understand truly the fidelity of the wearables. Can my watch actually tell me my true VO2? It's not as accurate as a performance test, that's actually in a laboratory. It's not going to be perfect on my VO2. It's not going to be perfect on my, pulse oxygen saturation, etc. However, it's going to be very reliable to itself. So if there's a trend for any of the wearables that you mentioned, the trend is what can be appreciated, taken, and trusted because that device has an inter-rater reliability, intra-rater within itself that has a good fidelity. So you can look at any type of device that you want to get, understand does it fit your own personality, and then understand what you're getting is not the true measure of that, but you're getting more than a proxy. You're getting a very good approximation of that measure that can be trusted as a trend over time. And so if that's something that benefits your training and benefits your quality of life, you use it. But if you bash yourself for not getting your 10,000th step today, or you don't participate in, social engagement, or you subtract from your sleep because you have to get your 10,000th or 30,000th step, then they're detractions from our lives.
I look, to add to that, I look at the wearable device space as, to your point, the keyword there, fidelity, and what you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at. But to your point, behavior modification tool, 100%. It's a continuous measuring tool that you don't look at it day to day, but to your point, by week, by month.
Yeah.
And that's really what it matters. I can, if I had a really bad sleep score today, it's because I might have only slept 5 hours and something kept me up, or I ate too late. Oh, like it helps you understand your body,
Yeah.
but you have to understand like the score doesn't really mean anything because it's just right now, it's 100%. It's a somewhat accurate number that is only accurate in how we describe it, the trend.
Yeah.
And that's what it leads. It should tell a person, you know what? This is not a normal trend. Let me go to my doctor and do an episodic measurement that has high fidelity,
Yeah.
and I could rule out any issue. That's where I feel wearable devices fit.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is like, it's hard to yet see a full environment because right now it's been just really dashboards and glorified colors and bells and whistles. And it's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
but if you got to dial in those numbers, the accuracy of those numbers, how you use those fuel substrates in regards to those intensities.
Yeah.
But that's a whole
Yeah.
other conversation.
No, but you're exactly
To
right
kind of
because
bring it
they
back,
are a screening tool. That's all they are. They're a screening tool to give you a warning, should
yeah,
I go get this tested? Great point.
yeah, no, it is. That's the only thing, Uh, one thing what I really feel wearable has been very beneficial is for falls.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that that's a leading cause of serious injury in older adults, and falls in our big brain problem as much as a muscle problem. What should fitness and rehab, um, what in those worlds, what are they doing differently? Because one is obviously general public, you know, we should do, we should be advocating more for
Mm-hmm.
programs as opposed to getting there, getting hurt because we have no baseline then to refer to.
Right. Yeah, there's some exceptional things that are being done in the world of physical activity, frailty as related to falls. So the number one thing is trend. Is this individual starting to walk much slower than their normal? Have they crossed over to the point where they're walking less than 1 meter per second for all the steps that they're taking today? And that is a great screening tool that's easily wearable and data that can be relied upon with a wrist-based device, or potentially some others, but wrist-based is the most popular there. So if I crossed under 1 meters per second, that should cue individuals to seek further attention. And there's some prehabilitative, as you mentioned, opportunities there as an individual goes from, a 1.5 meter per second walker down to 1.3. Why do we have to wait till they're 0.9, right? So you can do some prehabilitation based on trends. All right, now are they taking under 3,000 steps per day where they typically had been taking 5,500? So we can look at volume. We can also look at their capacity to be able to, certainly get up from the floor. Is this individual, have that capacity still retained? So we look at a floor to stand test for them, and a wearable can give us a remote therapeutic monitoring opportunity. What's the performance of a 30-second sit to stand in a remote therapeutic monitoring, an RTM capacity, easily reportable in to a rehabilitation company? Oh wow, they can actually only perform 2 repetitions in 30 seconds of a sit to stand. This is way off of their trend. What's going on? They're having pain, they've lost some flexibility, they're fearful, any number of things. So then it has to be discovered, on a person specific level. And this is just a warning sign, because I could probably list you 12 different reasons why a person's gone from 5 sit to stands in 30 seconds to 2 sit to stands. But that's where artificial intelligence isn't going to be able to do it. But it takes a human experience to be able to understand all those different variables, look at this individual, and create something more than just what the wearable gives you. So the wearables are great, especially in that. And obviously, there's a fourth component that should be mentioned. They can actually even serve as an alarm that someone has fallen and they've been on the ground for a period of time. So you've got all 4 of those are great within the space of falls or prevention of.
Challenge that I see right now is, to your point, is making sure governance lies with the professional, security of the data, but at the same time, in a remote training situation, I feel like the curriculum, it's not been part of the standard PT curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
You've taught in several different schools and you teach courses now. What are you trying to instill in the next generation of PTs that are missing?
I love that question, because you're exactly right. We thought, pre-pandemic, that there was no way to be able to create a telehealth experience that could ever be on par with an in-person experience. And for many things, we still need that in-person experience. But the skills, to your point, the skills that are necessary for an effective telehealth experience lie largely in what we call the soft skills. And these are a very hard science for a lot of people to pick up, but we call them the soft skills. So it's motivational interviewing, it's therapeutic alliance, it's collaborative decision making, shared decision making, readiness to change models, behavioral economics. All of those things go into it. And what that means is that I am effectively not on site with you, but I'm demonstrating such a degree of listening to you that I can help to enhance our therapeutic alliance, because I can show you that not only am I hearing you, but I'm also integrating what you're telling me. So I can say, Marcello, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're interested in learning about the science of performance and aging. Is that correct? And that would be a form of motivational interviewing. So you want to actively show listening. You want to be reflective with people. You want to use open-ended questions. And that's a very difficult science to actually cause an individual to be able to ingest that and to be able to reflect that in real time, to use open-ended questions, affirmative responses, an opportunity to be reflective as well, etc. That's called the OARS principle of motivational interviewing. Those are the exact skills that the new graduates need to have. And this generation of people, they appear to be taking that up nicely because they want to go back, and they're realizing we've got to pivot right now away from electronics toward real interpersonal communications is starting to become valued again, and learning how to be a good communicator is something that this generation is really taking seriously.
Yeah, I agree with you. I see it with my own kids. I see it with Gen Z. I see it with, it is, yeah, it's like, I don't know how it happened. I reached unk status, which is kind of like, what happened?
Yeah,
I think you could relate because it's like, we don't think that we're old because, we're still competitive,
yeah,
but, like it's different. Like it's different. Now there's four generations in the workforce.
yeah,
So it creates this communication skill that I think we grew up with that digital technology not removed, but put another layer. So it kind of atrophied that ability of use, a reason
yeah,
for use, really.
yeah.
So if anyone's listening right now, what and they want to take their brain health seriously, what are some things that they should do next week that they can change?
I'll keep it very brief for you. Uh, Engage in the form of physical activity that engages you. If that's exercise, great. If that is gardening, great. If it's volunteering, great. If it's playing pickleball, great. If there's a form of physical activity that stimulates you, don't feel guilty that it's not defined by society as exercise. So that's number one. Engage in volumes of physical activity that are attractive to you. Number two, consider your opportunity to eat more cleanly for your brain health, your immune system health, your gut health, because there are 38 trillion microbiota, which outnumber the cells in your body. How they are fed will influence what you have as cravings. The anti-inflammatory, we call them short chain fatty acids, that those microbiota actually deliver. The gut brain axis is very, very important. So think about eating from 30 different plants per week. All right. And remember, that may sound burdensome, but 30 different plants is, four different types of lettuce, four different types of greens in your salad. So 30 plants per week is not all that hard. So that's number two. So I know you want to say something. Go ahead.
No, I just think the supplemental fiber too, and to add
Yes.
to that, supplemental
Yeah.
fiber, what I call old, like my kids make fun of me, they call it old man tang, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And you're exactly right, because I'm trying to keep my answer short, but
Yeah,
gut microbiota love fiber, don't like sugar. Like, I could go on and on. I could write a book about that, which I did.
you
So it's
should.
physical activity like you like. It's eating more whole foods.
Yeah,
Engage in social activity in a diverse fashion with people that agree with you and don't agree with you, so you can learn how to problem solve in different ways. And if anything, it's sleep in a regular basis. Sleep the same exact time every single night. If 9:45 is your time, make it 9:45, and then engage in something that pushes your brain to do something new. Those are the 5 quick answers to your question for your brain and body health.
great answers. What's the most dangerous myth in neurological rehab or performance training right
Mm.
now that you wish would die?
Yeah, there's two competing values on this. Number one, that people age out of being able to change their nervous systems, that neuroplasticity suddenly times out at age 71. No, no. You got the right ingredients, the nervous system is ready to change, and a heartbeat literally takes less than 10 minutes time to make a new connection across two neurons, no matter what age you are. The second thing that is a competing value is, after you've endured an injury to the nervous system, stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, concussion, the list goes on, that there's a certain time frame that after which you can't recover. And that is absolutely blown out of the water as well. Science now debunks that. So those are the two competing myths that I wish were gone.
Uh, so if people want to know more about you, where can they find more information? I mean, I brought up a couple. If you haven't watched this TED Talk, you should.
Yeah, super easy. So my website is just my entire name, www.mikestuder.com. That's easy. The Brain That Chooses Itself is available on Amazon. My second book, known as My Facebook, is also available on Amazon. And you just do any web search and type in Mike Studer, and you're going to have more time on a screen that I don't want you to spend on than you have time today, because I am very easily searchable. But the TED Talk, the book, and the website are probably number one, two, three.
What's next for you?
Continuing to condition myself so I'm ready to perform in October for the Huntsman's Games. First game starts on October 12th. And so I run about 40 miles a week. I swim every single day. I get into either a hot tub or a sauna every single day. And I'm right now just positioning myself toward the pickleball competition and loving life. But professionally, I'm probably going to hit about 17 different states, 3 different continents, and three different countries between now and when I hit those Huntsman Games with the lectures that I'm doing. Yeah,
Wow, that's impressive.
yeah.
Congratulations. I think if anyone has ever seen you at a trade show, which I have, I think if they can get a minute of your time, it's everyone should grab you. You're, a wealth of knowledge. I can't thank you enough for jumping on and talking to our community. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to both interact with you here, and I'll look forward to seeing you at another trade show soon.